Good evening. Welcome to the Elyria City Council meeting for Monday, the May 17th, 2021. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of reflective silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Sira, would you please lead us in the pledge? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Mr. Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sira. Here. Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Baird.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Gillette.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Keys.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Public hearings.
We have none.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President, and good evening, City Council members. A couple things I just wanted to recognize initially is I want to thank all the folks who came out this past weekend and volunteered for Pride Day, helped spruce up the city. Also, thank you to those that donated bikes this weekend. We had an overwhelming amount of bikes donated, and so we're excited to work with the Elyria Bicycle Center to get those distributed. If anyone knows of any kid that needs a bike, they can have them go on ElyriaCares.com and sign up for a bike. Also, at the last meeting, we presented a brief snapshot of like Elyria major investments that needed to happen. So since then, we've continued to listen for community, from feedback from you all in terms of what are those needs that you see as well. And we've been also doing some deep digging on the American Rescue Plan guidance. And we've been working with finance and really looking at what the eligible uses are, then how we can take advantage of this great investment that's coming into our city and make the most of it. So I'm open for any questions as well.
Very good. Any questions for the mayor at this time? Thank you, Mayor. Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just a few quick updates. City Hall is open. We are still operating out of the back door there. We have extended the hours. We're now 8:30 to 4. We were 9 to 3. I'm kind of leaving that, at least for the foreseeable future. Gives our folks, since we still are asking and requesting people check in at utilities, although obviously people have been going through City Hall. This gives our utilities people a chance to get open, get set up, and then at the end of the day, clearing out City Hall for that purpose. Also, the kiosk, we're a whisker away from that rascal being up and running, so people will be able to have accessibility to pay their utility bills virtually until about 9, 10 o'clock at night. So that, and we're also working on some future protocols. I know Mr. Williams will speak a little bit to this for what our city employees and City Hall and our buildings look like after June 2nd. Those will be in place even before that time frame. I'd like to give a couple of kudos to our communications department. They've been out putting the baskets up, and I know many of you have purchased those baskets. That's not an easy task in the middle of traffic trying to put those things in their place. Also to Scott Payne and Andrew Fisher from our forestry department. They're the ones over the last week and a half that have planted all the planters in downtown. And today they were starting to work on putting some mulch in some of where the bushes are. So kudos to them. In between our building and lands and Parks and Rec, they are responsible to weed and feed and water those baskets and planters throughout every day, including the weekend. So we shouldn't have a problem with the baskets this year. And the last one is a kudos to our building, two of our people in our building lands, Mr. Schneider, who is our maintenance manager, and a young lady named Lexi, who is our part-time employee. She's been with us for a few weeks. They spend their morning pretty much starting at 7 o'clock, and she works from West Avenue to East Avenue and cleans up the trash. Down Broad Street, down a little bit towards Washington Avenue, Kerstetter, and then 2nd Street and Middle Avenue and Court Street out here, and she does a very good job. I've had actually business owners, when I've walked around downtown, say, hey, they notice her because she's got a yellow City of Elyria shirt on. Unfortunately, by mid-afternoon, sometimes that trash is right back out there, but we do work on keeping that clean. Okay. And that's all I have for this evening, so if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Is there any update on the building for the Uncle Vick's building? I know we talked the last meeting, you had mentioned that they were going to still in that process. Is there any movement more on that, or?
Yes, Mr. President, through you. I anticipate they'll start again on Monday to start to complete that demolition portion of it. I talked to Mr. Gill on Friday. They were supposed to start last week, and there was something with the 14-day window that they have to notify the EPA when the asbestos was completed.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Brubaker or Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. Mr. Brubaker, I don't know if this is a stupid idea, but what about some signs that say, please don't litter?
We can certainly work with our street department and our sign department to see if we can get some signs.
I mean, at least start them off maybe in the city, downtown, and, you see them every once in a while on the roadways, so just.
Sure, we can look into that.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Finance Director Plesky.
Nothing at this time, Council President.
Law Director Deary.
No report, Mr. President.
All right. Elyria Police Department, Chief Whiteley. Elyria Fire Department, Chief Mack. Oh, Mr. Oswald, you had another question?
Yeah, another one. For the chief.
Chief Mack or Chief
the police
Whiteley?
Yeah, you can go walk up there, please. Through you, Mr. President, and thank you. I did take a ride over to the parking lot for the police department.
Yes.
Looks like it's coming along really good. Couple questions. They got the fence going up, and they've dug probably like 8 or 10 inches below where the grade is. Is there that for a reason? And then the second thing is, are you going to have gates coming in and out?
There are going to be gates coming into the police area, the parking. The visitor section will not have a gate. They'll pull in where they pull in now and have full access to the parking area for visitors and the front of the station. I'm going to have to defer to the engineer about what the trenches are for and all that. They just told me they're putting a fence in and started digging.
Okay, thank you.
Engineer Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. President. Those trenches where they're putting the fence, they're going to pour concrete in there. It's to help with maintenance around the facility, so you don't have to edge it. So forever we won't have to edge it. We just mow over top of it, and it's a lot quicker.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask him? Chief, or through John, were they going to reconfigure the entrance coming in and out, or is that?
Yeah, the entrance for the police is coming off where the curve is, a little further north of where the entrance is now. But the visitor entrance will stay where it's at.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Chief Whiteley? Engineer Schneider, while you're there, if you wanted to give your report. All right. Very good. No? Okay. Mr. Williams? Safety Service Director, Assistant Safety Service Director.
Thank you, President Stewart. And to the council members, I have 3 items that I would like to briefly report on. That being some of the, excuse my voice, I'm having some issues with my vocal cord polyps and it's kind of in and out. But the central maintenance garage discussion has advanced, and I'm sure that Dr. Jesse is happy to hear that. We've met with building departments. We're looking at blueprints, designs. Everyone, I think, to this date has visited the Lorraine facility. And just so you all know, they did a lot of the homework for us, in essence. They visited multiple ODOT facilities and the Newark facilities throughout the state. And so all of our folks have looked at their blueprints, looked at their, visited their plant, and we think that there's a lot of efficiency there. And so there are some things that are unique to us in Elyria, and so they are combining some designs. And so very soon we'll be able to kind of get a better idea of that. We met engineering and all the other departments. So we think we have a good plan going forward. They're doing their due diligence, and we'll be able to report to you all with more specifics on the timelines and how that is advancing. So I think it's an exciting project. It gives us a great opportunity to complete the last building in the arsenal of great new buildings in our city. As Mr. Jesse talked about last week, I think the schools, City Hall, the county government buildings. So this is the last one, and I think we're moving very well along with that project. So if you have any questions about that, I can answer specifically. Any questions regarding that? Yes, sir.
Mr. Oswald?
Yeah, I toured that, and yeah, the Taj Mahal. I don't know if I like the dollar mark. It's an awful lot of money. I get it. You know, we need it. I don't know if we need to go to that extent. You know, I park my vehicle outside and clean the snow off every day before I go to work. That's work, you know. So, I mean, keeping our vehicles under cover and having a nice place to work on these vehicles, I get it. But I don't know if I want to be spending as much money as they're talking about. So I just wanted to mention that as we go along. We do need it. It is necessary. But I just wanted to let everybody know my ideas on that dollar figure. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Oswald, in regards to the, you know, we understand your concern in regards to that, but I think what we're investing in capital investments, a lot of trucks, plows, that these need to be under roof. And we know that the price tag would appear to be coming in a little bit more than what we want to spend, but we're looking into that. But I think it's important that we're asking our taxpayers for these Issue 6 funds that we worked hard at in doing, that we really need to kind of have the forethought to kind of put them under cover and making sure that our investments over the long haul are going to last a little bit longer. And I think that was really the essence behind that. Mr. Jesse, if you want to weigh in on that, because you've been kind of leading the charge on.
Sure, thank you, President Stewart, through you. Yeah, and I guess I'd say to Mr. Oswald, this is not about the convenience of our employees, although that certainly is a byproduct of having a facility, but first and foremost is protecting the investment of the equipment. When equipment sits outside, it takes a toll on it that keeping it under wraps does not.
Gillette, if you wanted to, you had your hand up as well.
Through you, Mr. President. I'd like to commend the administration and other members of council. We have to remember this is a 50-year minimum investment. And for us to go cheap right now isn't a good idea. We need to build a correct structure for 50 years. So we have to look to the future. And I think what we saw on your site visit is what we need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Williams, in your report?
Yes, sir. And just to follow up, yes, I think that the due diligence being done by our staff, they're really excited about this. And again, I think the opportunity for us to come together and build something uniquely special for our community is a great opportunity. The other piece, COVID protocols. So we are in the process of redefining our COVID protocols as it relates to safety of our staff and our community, especially as it relates to visiting our facilities. We've done this with Parks and Rec because as of May, we are allowing for rental facilities again. And we've been working with Dave Covell in the Lorain County Health District to make sure that things that we are doing are in the best interest of health. We appreciate the advancement of the vaccination, and that's placing us in a much more advantageous position, but we still want to be cautious and careful and make sure that we are protecting public safety. As it relates to this building in particular, we are right now in the process of doing a survey of the employees, not just building, but all over the city in terms of city employees to identify who has been vaccinated, who has not been vaccinated. This is a completely anonymous survey. But we think that we should get some information so we know exactly what our status is. From the CDC and a lot of the information they're sharing is if you've got 80% of your folks vaccinated, that informs you one way versus if you have 20%. So we want to be able to get some data and make sure that we're having informed decisions. Everything we do, we bounce back and forth with the Lorain County Health District. They provided great guidance for this. They are the medical experts, and we're just doing our due diligence as good stewards to make sure that we're gathering the right information to make the best decisions. Another component that we have kind of onboarding are mobile vaccination clinics. We have our third Thursday concerts. We have some events on Saturday, and we're looking at working with the state of Ohio and other health partners in our community to make sure that we can provide vaccination clinics for those who wish to be vaccinated. We want to create the opportunity, encourage folks to do so, and there are some who will not for various reasons. Our focus isn't that. Our focus is providing that opportunity for those who would desire to get vaccinated. The more of our community that's vaccinated, the safer we all are. So we are pursuing those efforts, and any questions about any of those two subjects, I would.
Any questions for Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Williams, I hope that you do locate a site downtown. We have a lot of people that walk in the area. To walk in and be able to find a spot to have a vaccination, I think that'll be an encouragement that they don't have to worry about trying to get a ride somewhere. So I hope you find somewhere downtown that is open that they can walk in and get a vaccination.
We have identified those sites. We've even gone as far as our discussions to make sure that we will have two of the products on site, one being the Johnson, the other being most likely the Pfizer, because there are some folks who they want one and done. They're transient. They might not be able to get back, so we want to make sure that we have that opportunity, as well as those who would wish for one or the other. So the mayor and our staff, we have had this discussion. We're working with Cleveland Clinic. We're working with Mercy, the Health District, Health and Dentistry, and a group from the governor's office. So we believe that probably just about every Saturday and most likely every third Thursday for at least 8 weeks, we're planning to have these vaccination clinics available to our community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Assistant Safety Service Director Calvert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening to members of council. I have a couple of quick updates for you. We have received some interest in a couple of areas that we need to tweak or need to bring forward for the opportunity to tweak through design review and zoning. So a couple of zoning changes that have been requested are taking a look at allowing a microbrewery downtown as well as outdoor seating. The other changes that have been requested are looking at our design review process to specifically around LED lighting, especially downtown. So we're taking a look at that. And also cabinet signs. So this is something that came up recently. Currently, design review only allows for cabinet signs of 30 inches or less. And we are receiving a large number of variance requests through Planning Commission for that, which tend to get approved. So just an update to let you know that we're holding internal meetings with all the departments that need to be a part of that conversation. And we'll hopefully, have some solutions there to offer very soon. The other thing I wanted to share is some good news. I heard an update from Crane Aerospace, who is going to be breaking ground on their expansion very soon. So we expect to see that in the next month or so, dependent on weather, of course. And just as a reminder, that's a $2.5 million investment with 10 full-time jobs committed. So we're looking forward to that.
Excellent. Any questions for Ms. Calvert? Thank you. Mr. Corzine, wastewater.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to let council know, as you're aware, we've been working with Ohio EPA for about a year now on several drafts of our revised NPDES permit to operate the plant. We just received that last Friday. So several of us are going through that document, 58-page document, and we're just double checking everything, make sure that nothing was changed since the last draft, and we'll be moving forward on the new permit.
Very good. Any questions? All right, thank you. Mr. Corzine. I believe I've gotten everybody that's here. President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, Community Development Finance. Item number 2, Community Development Finance. Item number 3, Community Development Finance. Item number 4, Finance. Item number 5, Utilities, Safety and Environment. Item number 6, Finance, Utilities, Safety and Environment. Item number 7, Utilities, Safety and Environment. Number 8, Finance, Utilities, Safety and Environment. Item number 9, Finance. Item number 10, Community Development and Planning. Item number 11, all copies received in the clerk's office. Petitions and remonstrances from council members.
There are none.
Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
There are none.
Resolutions, first reading.
Sponsored by Finance, a resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of delinquent, inactive utility accounts and directing the Clerk of Council to certify said accounts to the Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2021-13. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance, a resolution adopting the report of the Elyria Economic Development Committee.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2021-14. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance authorizing the Finance Director to create a new special revenue fund.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-83. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase a new fire engine for the fire department through the State of Ohio Purchasing Program or equivalent program and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-84. Sponsored by Utility Safety Environment. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the several law enforcement agencies of Lorraine County for purposes of a mutual aid agreement and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Question has been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-85. Sponsored by Utility, Safety, and Environment. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, ODNR, and accept, if offered, the Nature Works 27th round grant for the Parks and Recreation Department and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Question on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-86. Sponsored by Utility, Safety, and Environment. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to exercise the first-year option of the existing sludge disposal contract with Lorain County Landfill LLC for sludge cake disposal.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-87. Sponsored by Utility, Safety, and Environment. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the water pumping plant sludge cake disposal.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-88. Sponsored by.
There is an initial.
Okay.
Yeah.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2021-81, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the 2021 street resurfacing project to replace the existing Exhibit A with the new Exhibit A and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, please consider this amendment without the benefit of a referral or committee report. I'd like to make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell.
Second.
Second by Ms. Jacira. Now that Ms. Deere, would that just be on the motion for this without the benefit?
Correct.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-89. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance is second reading.
There are none.
Ordinance is third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
CD Finance requests the presence of the mayor, law director, finance director, safety service director, and engineer on Monday, May 24th at 6 p.m. All items referred. Finance requests the presence of the mayor, law director, finance director, safety service director, and engineer on 5/24, immediately following the joint. All items referred, council chambers. Utility Safety Environment requests the law director, safety service director, and engineer on 5/26 at 6 p.m. All items referred in the council chambers. And Strategic Planning requests the mayor, safety service director, auditor, and solicitor on Monday, June 7th, immediately following the council meeting. All items referred.
Very good. Miscellaneous and unfinished business. Laid on the table here tonight is we need to appoint members of the Board of Tax Review. This is kind of we need to reappoint these. I think Mr. Baird was a part of this committee a while, and it has kind of, and now we have a resident who is questioning some of the income tax that was taken out of her payroll taxes, and so we need to address that. So we need to appoint this legislation that's before you. So, Mr. Tolet.
Thank you, Mr. President. On this motion, I'd like to make a motion to waive the defects in service to the legislation laid on the table.
There's a motion by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Mr. Locko, if you lead the registration, please.
Sure, sponsored by the Finance. An ordinance appointing a Board of Tax Review for the City of Elyria pursuant to Section 192.21 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Motion by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question will be called on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-90.
Is there anything else in miscellaneous and unfinished business? Ms. Simmons?
Yes, through you, Mr. President. I have a message from Mr. Eric Bowen. He was going to come to the meeting today, but he wasn't able to. But he wants to let everyone know that the South T-Ball Club is going great, and he would like to continue his relationship with the city, and we'll present that in writing. And he said, we would love to see more youth baseball at South Rec Center in the future. Also, more fields and support. Thank you sincerely, Eric Bowens.
I know that was a successful day out there. Mayor, if you want to kind of weigh in on that in regards to.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, it has been a great to see. And what I've learned is some of you all played Elyria South baseball, which has been pretty cool hearing those stories. But I think, yeah, Eric Bowens and the community has really rallied around this. And I think we, as we're looking at this recovery in terms of getting people outdoors, we need to be thinking about how we can support that work over there at the South Park as well.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. I know I've had a lot of conversations with everybody up here and conversations with the citizens that call and constantly have frustration, as we do, trying to get things taken care of. We constantly call out for somebody that doesn't bring their garbage can up, or that doesn't cut their grass, or has, code violations. City goes out, building department goes out, they get a ticket or whatever, nothing ever happens. So it goes on for 6, 8 months, it goes into the court, nothing gets done in the courts because maybe it's just a timely thing, I don't know. But the people that have to live around this constantly is just not fair to them. And I think somehow or another, we got to figure out how if we're going to have a code, we have to make sure there's follow through and it gets taken care of. If you have to write a ticket, write a ticket. And if we have to maybe, I don't know if you can do it, you may know this better, if you can have the code enforcement for the building department, if they're able to write a ticket because of the trash containers they're driving by. I don't know, but we have to figure out something because it's definitely not fair to the residents for the other ones that aren't doing their job on being good citizens. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Mayor Whitfield, do you want to
I can be
comment on
brief
that?
on this, just because I think I share a similar philosophy of just, when we see something like that, high grass or trash, you know, one position to take is like, hey, that's the resident's responsibility, and just let it sit there. We've taken the thing of, we're going to cut it, we're going to clean it, but we're going to put something on that they have to be held accountable for now paying for it. And Director Brubaker can speak to the details, but we've taken more of a position where we're going to, if the grass is high, we're going to cut it, but we're going to make sure there's something that we can try to get our resources back down the road. But go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, to that question in regards to our building department giving tickets. That there's a lot of components that go involved in that, from the police department to our law director's office. I personally don't think tickets are the way to go because it's easy to pay some $15 and walk away, and the situation is still not rectified. I believe that the building department does a great job when the complaints come in. They cite the property owners, not just for what the complaint is, but any other violations that are seen from the public right away. You have to keep that in mind. And they do cite for that. And when the stuff is not completed in 30 days, we do file the criminal charges through the courts. And our prosecutor's office does a very good job. There's protocols that they have to follow in regards to notifications. And then once it gets out of their hands into the courts and the magistrates, at that juncture, it can be drawn out for quite some time. Eventually, the goal is to get these people into compliance. That's the court's hope, is to get them into compliance. And I can tell you, in 14 years of working within and overseeing the building department, the courts have sent one person to jail. And that person spent about 60 or 90 days in jail. And that was one of the judges that's no longer there. So the process is working. It is slow. But the residents that we are citing do also have legal rights through due process, and we have to take that. And sometimes it doesn't work as quickly as I want. The mayor alluded to, a lot of times we'll go out and deal with the stuff as a city, whether it's cutting grass. If it's a vacant house, sometimes the first time I won't wait for it to go through the 5 days and the 8 days. I'll send it out. We do something called a KCC, a Kevin Courtesy Cut. We've done that for years. We'll do that on vacant lots, and then the second time we will cite them. And then go through our lien process and whatnot. But to take care of the neighborhood, where there are things that we do that you may not always see. But that's my take in regards to property maintenance and the high grass and those processes.
Sure. Mr. Oswald.
Through, Mr. President. Yeah, maybe you're doing a few good, and we appreciate that, but I can tell you 2 or 3 cases right now. That one case has been 8 months, the building department went out again, and I hadn't heard back on that one, and the problem still exists. The problem is still there. And on a couple others, yes, I was told that they were in courts, but I don't know, it's just a frustration that we get calls, we want to do. The worst thing is when we want to try to do good and we can't. When we can get something accomplished, we're really happy. But sometimes, yeah, I know it's slow and when it gets to the courts, but I don't know, I'd just like to see a little more effort, I guess.
Sure.
Mr. President, if I may.
Geary, sure.
Thank you. I understand the frustration. Like all of you, I live here. My family's had their businesses down in Elyria. And what I can tell you is, you're absolutely correct. Administrative enforcement through the building department is not a quick fix. And that's the process. Going to the court is not a quick fix. People have rights. We have to serve them. I can assure you that if it's possible, the prosecutor's office, we go after the property owner, we go after the tenants. If it's merited, I was just speaking to several, Mr. Oswald, your colleagues tonight. The building department inspectors will try to get compliance administratively first. They will bring it then to my office. We had a situation with a case. This case was turned over to my office in the fall of 2019. The courts were unable to properly serve the defendants until this past spring, which was a year and a half later. So yes, these are not quick fixes. These are misdemeanor cases. Yes, they are crimes, but unfortunately, there are no laws that can either prevent or correct people being bad neighbors. So we will do our best and zealously enforce our laws, but again, there are rights, and these things are not quick fixes. And yes, the courts would much rather have compliance than just set a fine or put someone in jail and the problem doesn't get solved. And yes, it is extremely frustrating. It's frustrating for you all who have to hear from residents. It's frustrating for me. I hear from residents. I've made my own complaints living in this city. Mr. Brubaker's shaking his head. I can see him smiling through his mask because he knows. So yes, if I had the answer, I would be bringing it to you. But I just could tell you that we work as hard as possible, and we try, honestly, to make things as uncomfortable as possible for some of these, chronic problem people. We have had to bring in the health department because people have not cleaned up after their pigs. Literally, their pigs. We've contacted the county tax department because the property might have been ripe for foreclosure. So any sort of angle where we can cut these people off, we look for it. And we definitely welcome and appreciate the partnership from you all on council and from the building department.
Thank you, Ms. Deary. So I guess, Mr. Oswald, maybe follow up with Mr. Brubaker again on those areas in the building department, see if we can expedite it. And maybe there's ways that down the road we can kind of look at other ways to kind of expedite the process. But it is frustrating. I know you're speaking to those individual houses that I know that you and I have talked about. So we'll see it through as best we can. The more we talk about it, the more maybe action can happen. So very good. Is there any more miscellaneous and unfinished business? Ms. Simmons, again, what's up?
Can you make sure that the bush that, when you're coming out of, through you, Mr. President, can you make sure the bush that's right there at Washington Avenue as you come out of Broad Street, I've had numerous complaints when they're coming out of Washington Avenue, they can't see traffic. It needs to be trimmed. It's like a huge bush.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. President, your wish is my desire, and it is already done.
Okay, never mind that.
There you go. Well, very good. You, Ms. Mitchell.
If I may, in defense of our building department and our guys that work in building and land, I have never once sent in a complaint, and I bug Kevin's eyeballs out about grass or anything that it is not addressed. Yes, there are some things that take a little bit longer that have to go through the court system, as Mrs. Deary said, but that's the process. But our team of the building inspectors and the guys that work in building and land and Mr. Brubaker, they do a fantastic job. Yep. So I don't want anyone to think that we're bashing your team, because we are not, and I appreciate everything you do. Yep. And I know I bug your eyeballs out, and I'm gonna keep doing it. Thank you.
All right, very good. There's nothing more for this committee. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sarah. Is there any further discussion? Question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned. Okay.